I'm Kavita Vishwanath, Senior Vice President and India Country Head for Toast. How many of you have heard of the company Toast before today? Okay, it was a little bit like me before I joined them. I'll take a minute to tell you what we do. Toast is one of the leading in-store commerce platform. We have a SaaS platform that offers products to restaurants, cafes, retailers. We manage everything from front of the house to back of the house. So starting from booking a table, managing your guest information, doing payments, POS, back of the house, kitchen management, P&L, payroll, inventory, recipe costing, all of the things that make a restaurant, cafe, and a retailer function really well so that they can focus on what they do, which is really cook and serve guests like ourselves. So amazing domain to be in. And there's a ton of sophistication involved in all of this. Oops. Okay. I'm going to change gears a little bit. I think we are kind of covering the spectrum here, starting from AI, what beautiful code looks like, what not so good code looks like, to Sirisha coming in talking about banking and the transformation that we see there. What I'm going to touch upon is the essential skills required for future tech leaders in an age where we are all getting impacted by digital disruption. In the early days of my career, cloud was a big disruptor, right? Cloud came in, but it gave us all enough time to think about what kind of disruption this is going to bring in. Organizations, enterprises took some time to adopt cloud, really figure out whether it's going to save money for us or not. And it gave us time to sort of settle in with that. But what's happening today is there is disruption happening every day. Each day you wake up, there is a new model out there, especially in AI. And of course, you cannot walk out of a conference without talking about AI. Okay, it's like something you have to do if you're in the technology world. So with so much disruption happening around you, how do you evolve as a tech leader? It starts with really future-proofing your fundamentals. Looking at tech, which is existing in the world today, to what's coming up in the horizon. How do you anticipate the next evolution that cloud brings in? We saw edge happening. We saw decentralization happening. Of course, embracing AI's potential. Looking at use cases that are way beyond what's happening currently. Like how can you embed a use case for your in your product roadmap? How can you think of enhancing productivity for not just your developers, but your non-technical users as well? And in an age where there's so much code being written, being generated, there's obviously threats to that. There are smarter people who are also figuring out how to hack into this code, how to break into systems and lose millions of dollars for businesses. So how do you integrate security as an evolving discipline when you're thinking about your vision for tech? And most importantly, cultivate a growth mindset through active ecosystem engagement, which is really about being aware of what's happening in your domain, being aware of what's happening in the industry, the market shifts that are happening. I mean, the recent news over the past couple of weeks is tariffs, right? It's shifted so much that's happening in the industry and market. And think of it this way. You're a technical leader in one of the companies that's expected to ship stuff outside of China, or let's say you're impacted because a lot of your supply chain is sitting in China or any of the other countries that are impacted with tariffs. How do you suddenly shift and make sure that your business is not impacted significantly, right? So this is what it takes to have an active ecosystem engagement when you think about global awareness and cultivating a growth mindset. How do you think beyond technology and develop a holistic view by aligning business to it? It starts with understanding your user needs and the customer journeys. So one of the things that's amazing about Toast is one of our values is customer focus. Now, what does it mean? It means that how do you bring customer centricity in the conversations that you're having or in the work that you're doing every day? And one of the beautiful things that we do is for roles or functions that are not talking or interacting with customers on a day-to-day basis, we try and give or create opportunities where you go on listening tours or customer interactions and capture feedback from the customer. I was on one such listening tour. By the way, one of the perks of working at Toast is your customers are restaurants and cafes, okay? So you go have a nice meal, have a nice drink, and have a pleasant conversation about, how the product is, what kind of shifts they are seeing in the market, right? So I was in one such customer conversation, and there was this wine sommelier. A wine sommelier is somebody who understands everything about wines, who gives you suggestions on what wine to pick, how do you pair it with the right kind of food basis what you like, etc., etc. This wine sommelier is telling us, I wish I had a system that tells me at real time that my top selling wine is actually running low on stock and I need to stop selling it and start pushing my other second and third best selling wines. Okay. Now, remember, this is a wine sommelier whose job itself is knowledge intensive because there's tons of stuff to learn and know about wines. And here he comes and tells us that I wish technology can help me and AI can help me with this, right? So do not underestimate the immense knowledge that your customers have about their business, that they share with you in some of these conversations that can actually work for you and give you an edge over your competitors. So I think understanding user journeys and being a part of it is such an important, learning curve. Then comes staying informed about regulatory compliance and privacy trends. Now, we're all building systems and products to serve global customers, right? But at the same time, we know that none of these things are uniform. Every country looks at privacy laws, looks at compliance and regulatory in a completely different lens. So how do you build a product or a system that serves everyone? I think one of the fundamental things that we need to be aware of is how do you stay on top of all of these changes, or at a high level, understand what are the nuances or changes you need to bake into your technical vision when you're building a product that's more global in nature. And of course, design with flexibility and evolves with future technologies. Okay. I couldn't think of any other GIF, so I thought, I'll get some smiles in the room. Do not go into the rabbit hole of what Trump said this morning, so bringing you back here. But I think the most fundamental thing to me, which is central of all of this, is communication, which is a superpower. But I'll tell you that it's a superpower that none of us are leveraging right. Being able to articulate your thoughts well, weaving a story around what you want to present in your technical committee or on why a technical investment is required, being able to connect and communicate to your stakeholders who are non-technical folks on the importance of something, doing it with empathy, doing it with authenticity, and bringing the right emotional intelligence to be able to anticipate the emotions, the reactions, the conflicts that might emerge right after this is such an important part of being a technical leader or building that muscle as you grow up your career and look at a changing world that's already being disrupted. I think to me, this cross-functional collaboration is super important. And I'll tell you that this is something that I've seen the best of the technical folks struggle with. And I'm sure a lot of you here do a ton of interviews. And this is something that becomes a differentiator when we think about, technical leadership and what kind of leaders we need for our organization. At the center of leadership is self-awareness, adaptability, and continuous learning. We need to start thinking about taking ownership that's beyond code. Look at it strategically and take a long-term vision. Create an environment that fosters innovation within your team through mentorship and other tools that your organization provides. Prioritize continuous learning and adaptability, and be open-minded and embrace new technology. I was watching a video where there was a C-level executive who was very proudly sitting in a conference and talking about how their organization went all in on AI and reaping the benefits of it. And one of the questions the interviewer asked him is, what do you think surprised you the most? And the exec said, the resistance and the reluctance I saw within my organization to actually adapt AI. By the way, this does not surprise me. I think, although all of us have heard and read so much about AI, there is still, I think, something holding us back from going full hog with it. And rightfully so, there are pros and cons to it. But being in a position where you're not open-minded to say, hey, I'm going to do this to adapt to AI and, the other new tech that's happening here, would mean that you're already setting your career back and taking a step back from, where your peers and your competitors are. Okay, I'll leave you with some final thoughts. I already saw the timer go up. And I'm sure whatever I'm speaking here today is not new to a lot of you. But if this in these 10 minutes I'm able to trigger any thoughts and have you guys take away one or two things from this presentation, I think that's my 10 minutes worth of time this morning. I'll say act as strategic leaders, not as implementers, is such an important part of your role because people, business users, the stakeholders are looking up to this community to guide in the world of disruption. Communicate with clarity to your teams and your stakeholders and simplify that communication. Remember empathy and emotional intelligence. Design with your customers in mind. This is an important part of how do you differentiate yourself in the industry and build a future-ready, resilient development culture. Thank you very much.